Pleasure to welcome our panel for today. And once they're all gathered here virtually, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Panelists, if you'll join me on screen. Very good. I think we're all here. Yes, we are. Okay, I'm going to ask you each to tell us a little bit about yourselves. We'll go alphabetically, starting with Lorraine.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lorraine Salvo. I am a certified financial planner and head of financial planning at Palisade Capital Management, an independent wealth advisor in Fort Lee, New Jersey, which is women-owned and led. I work exclusively with high net worth families and many of those being women. So I'm very excited for the panel today and to speak with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you. Lauren?
Hello, everyone. I'm Lauren Schwimmer. I'm an attorney at Flaster Greenberg. We're a full-service law firm, but I practice in the corporate and real estate department. In the corporate world, I help people with their everything from the day-to-day, from beginning a company to hopefully an exit where you make lots of money or give it to a new generation. Businesses also involve a lot of real estate, so that's how I got in the real estate portion. And I'm actually the new practice group lead for the real estate and land use department. That started January, so it's a bit of a mouthful.
Okay.
Very
Congratulations.
excited here today. Thank you.
Mamie?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mamie Tolbert, and I am the current president of the New Jersey State Women's Chamber of Commerce. We cover the entire state of New Jersey. We have been in existence since 1978. We rebranded our organization in 2024, becoming the New Jersey State Women's Chamber. And our mission is to help women, business owners, in various ways and in different ways to grow their businesses, to make sure that their businesses are properly structured, to connect them with viable resources, and to do whatever we can to make sure that we are the major voice in the state of New Jersey for women business owners.
Okay, very good. And Alicia?
Hi, everyone. Alicia Visconti. I'm so happy to be with other people from New Jersey because I don't have to explain my accent. So thanks, everybody, NJBIZ, for having me on this. I am the CEO and president of FranServe. As you can see from the tagline, franchising is our superpower. We help people either own franchise, explore avenues in franchise, become franchise consultants. It's kind of the other side of the coin, if you will, of corporate America. It's owning your own business or becoming an entrepreneur or learning about it. So I'm excited to present that to you guys. I hope you keep an open mind and looking forward to the panel.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. An esteemed panel indeed. Looking forward to a great discussion. I wanted to start just by getting each of yours assessment on where we are at this moment in history. I asked because at NJBIZ we just on Monday we just published our a list of what we consider to be the top minority businesses in the state, and I wrote an introduction to that where I posited that it seemed to me at least that starting with the late part of the 20th century into the early part of the 21st century. A consensus seemed to have been developed that pursuing policies that promoted diversity and equity in the corporate world were undeniably good. That research showed that companies and businesses with diverse leadership performed financially better than companies that were more homogenous, and that seemed to be the motivating a prime motivating factor for how companies hired and promoted and ran their businesses. But that it seemed at this point that consensus, if it did exist, and you all can correct me if I was wrong about that, seems to have dissolved. So I'm curious as to whether A, you've seen that, and B, whether there was such a consensus, and whether it has dissolved, and whether that's how if it has, how that's affecting the way you go about your business. Mamie, I wanted to start with you since you are the current head of the new NJ Women's Chamber to get sort of a Chamber of Commerce view on where we are right now and what kinds of things are you seeing? What are you hearing out there?
Well, Jeff, definitely progress has stalled.
Okay.
I'll just, be straight out with that. It has stalled, and it seems like it's pretty much regressed to be perfectly honest with you. And I believe a lot of that is because of the reduction in the DEI initiatives. Some people thought DEI was good, some thought it wasn't good, but in our observations, it really did make a difference. And now we are in a situation where we're seeing a lot of, it seems to me, unfortunately, we're just not seeing any progress. 54% of the initiatives prioritize women advancement. And it's really interesting because now we're seeing a lot of women being affected in a way where they're not progressing, they're not able to progress, they're not able to really get to where they need to be. And it depends on where they are too. In our world, in the New Jersey State Women's Chamber, what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of women now, they're starting to launch their own businesses. And the reason why they're starting to launch their own businesses is because they feel like there's nowhere for them to go now. Especially in the corporate world, there's nowhere for them to go. They're not getting and I'm getting ahead of myself because I know we're going to discuss a lot of these things, but they're just not getting the recognition. They're not getting the advancement. They're not getting the pay. They're not getting anything. And they're working twice as hard as their counterparts, and they're still not getting it. So I just wanted to start the discussion there. It's definitely stalled. And it doesn't seem like it's getting any better.
Okay. Lauren, I wanted you to weigh on this. And I should say that one of the things I also pointed out was that here in New Jersey, I mean, traditionally we have been more, our law and policy have been more sensitive than a lot of other states to these kinds of concerns. Although I should say, I did get an email from someone who claimed, who said in no uncertain terms that this person, and he made no effort to hide his identity or anything, but that these kinds of policies that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, all they do is give special preference to people who aren't white men in business. I mean, this is an attitude that's out there, and I'm curious as to A, whether New Jersey, whether in your view New Jersey is any better, and B, whether you share Mamie's sense that yes, progress has indeed stalled at this point.
Well, law is very much a traditional male field. That stayed. I remember in law school there was a statistic that actually more women were becoming lawyers than men, but unfortunately, then by the time it became partnership, went from 51 to I think like 26%. I actually looked up right before this panel because I was curious if it's changed at all. Mm-hmm. And the numbers were the same. So there is definitely a gap. I will say my personal firm has made an initiative to try to, I think, get more young people and women into leadership roles. So, for example, we just kind of restructured everything, and that's how I got my new position as group practice lead, which has opened up opportunities. Like, I don't think I would be on this panel otherwise. But do we need work? Yes. Do I think New Jersey is different than the rest of the country? No, I think it really depends what pocket you're in. I do think there's lots of pockets in New Jersey. And yeah, it's an interesting debate over whether or not to have these DEI, or even if you have the policies, to call them DEI policies, right, that I keep hearing all about.
Right. I've heard that too. Do the same thing, just call it something else, because that's become a three-letter word, as it were. So, and I should also say that maybe I'm just talking to the wrong pockets, but I do hear when I talk to business owners and executives here in New Jersey that they are still committed to pursuing DEI initiatives and to pursuing diversity in their own staffs, because they think it works good. So they're not gonna just give it up just because other people are saying it's bad. I want to get Alicia and Lorraine in on this too. I'll start with you, Alicia, because I mean, Mamie said that a lot of business women are starting their own businesses. I mean, if you're seeing that as someone who works with franchises, I would think that you would sort of pick that up fairly quickly if that were happening.
Yeah, Jeff, I have to say I might be the lighthouse in the storm here, because I am also on the diversity committee for the International Franchise Association, the IFA. And one of the reasons I left corporate America, whatever it was, 12 years ago, I had a position there as a CEO, was I actually just got disgusted, with all due respect to anybody in corporate America, that, women coming back from maternity leave were invisible, and veterans coming back from tour of duty, age discrimination was, rampant. And it was depressing for me, for my team, after many years of corporate being happy with promoting people and taking care of them. So I got into franchising, and I have to tell you, we don't see that. Franchising is very different. Now, I will say that franchising had always been a very male-dominant industry because of capital and money and all of that, right? But it's amazing what an equalizer it is. The fastest growing segment in franchise ownership is women owning franchises. It's difficult in this economy, finding a job, finding people who want to, or are happy, even if they are employed, at the level they feel they should be employed. Franchising doesn't have a lot of that, doesn't have the restraint. Earlier this year, I released my book. It's called The Pink Tsunami: Women's Rise in Franchising. So that kind of sums up what you see I'm seeing, and why I wanted to be on this panel, and just, have a little dangling light there that maybe somebody starts looking at a slightly different avenue. So I see very different. And when it comes to the diversity, again, franchising just doesn't have that discrimination. It doesn't care what sex you are, what race you are, if you have a college degree. It doesn't do that. It's a great equalizer, unlike corporate America that really does have the tiers. So I'm much happier for the last 12 years than I was for the first 20, so yeah.
Very good. Well, good for you. Lorraine, I want to get you in on this too, because it seems to me you, as a financial advisor, you may also be saying the same kinds of things, of women coming to you and saying, "I've had it with this. Can I move on?" I mean, you can obviously answer the general question too, but on that issue in particular, are you seeing more of that these days?
Well, Jeff, I think that one of the things that's just interesting to me, just as part of the broader conversation, is that I think we've all heard about the great wealth transfer that is expected. Over $100 trillion will be in the hands of women in this country as baby boomers age and pass down wealth. Women typically live longer than men, as we know. So, historically, women have not had a voice in financial matters. That's predominantly why I got into this business, because I wanted to be able to, explain to women who are smart, educated women in their own right, in their own fields. But when it comes to money, they become so nervous and self-doubting, and just to sit on the same side of the table, frankly, and just say, I'm going to explain this to you, even basic things like, I know I should know this stuff. Well, if no one ever taught you, or no one made you feel comfortable enough to ask the questions, then how would you know? And if it's not your job, right? You've been busy raising a family and working and maybe taking care of aging parents. There's so many things that we're responsible for. Only in 1974 were women allowed to get credit in their own name. When I first heard that statistic, I was floored. And I brought it up to my mom, who was just turning 80 this year. And she said, "Oh, yeah, when I had to get my first credit card, I needed my dad to co-sign with me. When I got my first car loan, same thing. And even the mortgage on the house with my dad, my mom had to, she needed him to be on the mortgage. She couldn't have been on by herself. So, I mean, that is not that long ago. It's like 52 years ago, right? So it really is incredible how far we've come, but also I agree that, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, especially in the last few years.
Okay. All right. In that case, the question then becomes, what do we do about it? And I guess I'm curious as to where you all think the best place to start is. Is it changing attitudes in corporate America, or among business people, or is it changing policies in Washington or in Trenton? I mean, what's the best way to approach this? What should the goal be at this point, Lauren?
Personally, I think it's going to have to come down to changing the individuals, the managers, to get some education. Women bring a lot to the field. I mean, and have skills that some men might have, but other men, they definitely help. And it's something we should foster and really want in our workplace and I just kind of need to explain it to managers too, as well as I know we're going to talk about systemic bias a little bit, but things like that to bring to their attention, I think is really how you're going to get the change. I just don't see it from the government.
Okay. And yes, I mean, that's the question I was sort of getting to is systemic bias still exists. How do you change that? Mamie, from your perspective, from again an overarching sort of wide-ranging perspective, is it as bad as it used to be? I seem to be hearing that it had been getting better, and now that stalled. Is that the same thing with those kinds of attitudes? Those sort of really terrible antique attitudes that a lot of people still apparently have, if my email correspondent is any indication.
I like that word that you use, antique attitude. That's pretty much says a lot right there. And looking at the situation, I think that it's going to really start in corporate. I know many of us know what it's like to be the only woman in the conference room or the only woman at a certain level once you start, when I was in corporate and I was, my background was in the insurance industry. I was a claims adjuster, worked my way up to supervisor, then worked my way up to home office supervisor, where the managers that I used to report to now reported to me. Loved it. I did not do payback. And what I found is I found that the politics and all of the stuff that was going on, it was just absolutely ridiculous. Okay, it started getting better. Jeff, to your point, it started getting better. But with the new policies that have been put in place, what I'm finding, and I think, and talking to a lot of the business owners that are members and the members of the chamber, because they're not just all women, we have men who are members as well. What I'm finding is that it looks like people are using the new policies now as an excuse to go back to the way that they were before, which wasn't good. And, now they feel like, oh, now we don't have to, do better. We don't have to recognize the fact that women need to be involved and included. Women need to be, recognized. Women need to be valued. Now they're kind of going back to the thing. But also I'm seeing, and it's not everybody. Don't get me wrong. It's not everybody, because there are some that really are. And I think Alicia or one of them mentioned this. They really are. They've decided that, look, this is good to do. We all need to work together, men and women, and we can accomplish more. So let's do the right thing. And I'm seeing a lot of that in some of the corporate circles as well.
Okay. And that, I mean, you bring up an interesting point that I was going to make myself, and that is that what we're hearing now coming from, and it's not just government policymakers, it's also there are very powerful people in the private sector who are saying some of the same things. And it sort of creates a permission structure for everyone else to kind of say, okay, yeah, I never liked that. and I'm glad that we don't have to do that anymore. Lorraine, does it help that there was progress and that so more women are in supervisory roles, managerial roles, executive roles now, that maybe there's a chance to sort of blunt the force of that kind of permission structure and continue to say to people, no, it's really wrong to have those kinds of attitudes. It's really better if you don't do that.
I hope so, right?
Okay.
I mean, look, I think, I can just speak from my own experience. We can only just lead by example, right? And when I say that, in all areas of our lives, so not just at work, but, introducing the young women, the girls, other women in our lives, to empower them, to encourage them. Standing on each other's shoulders is so critical. And if you have a leader, as I do at our firm, being women owned and led,
Mhm.
that's basically like, it's a meritocracy, and really trying to advance really capable, smart women in positions of, decision-making positions, right? You can't be what you can't see, right?
Mhm.
So we want to perpetuate the normalcy of seeing women in high-powered roles, in decision-making roles. And it's never easy, but it's easier than it was hopefully 25 years ago, and it's easier than it was another 50 years before that, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully, the general trend is on the upswing. But we can only, hopefully we've just hit a little bump here, and
Mhm.
there are enough women that know what the heck they're doing, and by the way, will be controlling wealth, as I mentioned, to, have the decision-making power to change laws, enact better policies in private and public sectors, and not always making the girl the note taker, for example, and not saying, oh, you have to get the coffee. And let's talk about our male advocates too. Having colleagues that are like, I'll do that. I'll do that. So everybody, it's not, we're not jammed into gender defining roles and responsibilities.
Okay. Alicia, you've been nodding along. I mean, again, you described your experience in the corporate world. Is that what you were seeing? Do you see that now? And are the people you work with telling you something similar to that?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like I have been on panels and talking about this 20 years ago, and I'm on panels and talking about it now, right? So some things change, but some things stay the same. And I never have really understood that. I mean, one of my favorite quotes, right, is well-behaved women rarely make history. And I think the big challenge comes, and you have to understand my mindset. I do channel into superpower. So I, say, women, get your capes on, channel your inner superhero, and you pull up a chair at the table, raise your hand, speak up, write on LinkedIn. I write on LinkedIn all the time about women in business and women in issues. And I almost want to say, to some extent, not that, you put your head in the sand, but kind of disregard when somebody's like putting up those walls and say, well, no, not me, right? No, not me. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go get it. And I really have been saying that, I think, since I came out of the womb, and I think women wait for permission to do that. And I just want, to say you have that permission. You absolutely have that permission. And I think the difference is women are taught in many ways to be gentle, to get along, to be friendly, to be, well liked. And I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but you can't let other people dictate how you're going to be or what your values are or how you identify yourself as a person. So one of the things I do all the time is I challenge women when I'm speaking with them or when I'm mentoring them to, what are you doing for yourself right now that you may be frustrated in the world, you may see doors closing, but what are you doing to kick that door open? Don't accept it. Don't accept
Okay.
it.
And I'm just curious from all of you. I mean, New Jersey just elected a woman governor. There's a woman and we're not unusual. I mean, we've done that before. And there's a woman governor in New York. It's that sort of thing has become I don't want to say normal, but certainly it's no longer uncommon. Does that help? Put aside for a moment this governor's policies, which I think are probably going to be more in tune with what we're talking about here than what we're seeing coming out of Washington. But just the fact that the chief executive of this state, the chief executive of New York State, are both women. That must provide some sort of example. Maybe you're nodding. Is that right, or am I reading too much into that?
No, it does provide some sort of example. And I definitely agree with Alicia. One thing about it, we can't just sit by and wait for someone to give us permission. We already have permission.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to step up. I think that there needs to be more of us, women, that advocate and that speak up and really we're not quiet and we're not just accepting, what's offered or handed to us, but we're going to go get what we deserve to get. We're going to become, here's the thing, you got to know who you are already. Don't allow anyone else to define who you are or what you're entitled to or what you should or shouldn't do. I come from an era, I might be older than most of you, believe it or not. I come from an era.
I believe on my part, but go ahead.
I come from an era where the women, and especially in my culture, the women were more subservient.
Mhm.
And, pretty much that's what us girls were taught to do growing up, to, just get along and just, do this and do that for him and, all of this kind of stuff, and here I come, renegade. And I'm like, no, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be different for me. Okay. And so, it's the type of thing where we're seeing the governor of New Jersey, who is a woman, the governor of New York, who is a woman, and there's hope. There's hope that there are going to be more women in leadership roles. I mean, in different areas and different sectors.
Okay. All right.
Can I just comment for a moment, Jeff?
Of course, by all means.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate and go against the common belief here, all right, that women in politics or a woman leader in New Jersey opens more doors. I don't think it does. And I'll tell you why, because what happens when it's a male? It shouldn't change, right? So I don't think it's wonderful to see, but I don't think it really changes the attitude of anybody in their day-to-day lives. I don't think that someone's going to open a door for someone in business because we have a woman, leader in politics. And I think what happens is the reason why I don't align that is because then what happens when it changes? Does that mean that's gone? Does that mean we should pull back now because we have a male instead? So I'm just going to take the opposite stance on that and say it's an individual race. It's up to each individual. Doesn't matter who's in power. Doesn't matter if we get a woman president, which would be lovely, but it won't matter because then we'll get a male. And I think in this day and age, when the population is pretty much 50-50 women, why aren't businesses like that? Why aren't leaders like that? Why aren't CEOs like that? It's the nature of the population, and yet it's not the nature when you drill down. And I think that's where it has to happen, in the drill down. My 2 cents.
Okay. All right. No, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I'm just curious. And Lauren, you were sort of nodding along here. I'm curious to get your view on it. If seeing women in those kinds of positions, and put aside the governor for a second, let's talk about people in business who, women CEOs. They do exist, and some of them have been extraordinarily successfan Is that example? Does that help do the kinds of things that Mamie was just talking about, speaking up and being an advocate for yourself? Does that help to see that, okay, they did it, now I can too?
So I'm kind of going to take a middle view between the two.
Okay.
I think,
how did I know you were going to do that?
I know. I think it helps the future generations. I really would like to think my daughter is going to be inspired by the fact that I'm working, that I have the same handle with the men, and it's just going to be the more common norm for her, something she doesn't even think about. Do I think it's necessarily going to help me on my day-to-day job tomorrow? No.
Right. No.
But I do believe representation matters. And I think it also really actually helps getting more like-kind women in the door if someone already were qualified. So for example, I have now this position. The person above me is actually a woman too, for the corporate department, and the business and M&A also a woman. So we now have interviews where you're facing 3 women, and we've had lots of candidates, women candidates usually, who always comment on it. And then I think helps us really get more of those women with like minds in the door who might have not necessarily gone there to begin with. So representation definitely matters. I don't know how much the governor matters, but I would like it to be not a second thought that a woman could be president or anything she wants to be.
No. Lorraine, you were nodding. You want to add something to
Yeah,
this
no, I'm
discussion?
just going to make a quick comment. Like one of the observations I always make is, like when people say girl boss, and I know it's supposed to be empowering, but I don't really like it because why can't it just be boss, right? Or, oh,
Mhm.
it's a female doctor. How about just doctor, right? So to me, what I'm getting from, you know, like in summation from everything, that everyone just said, to me, it's just, no, it shouldn't matter, Alicia. It shouldn't matter because we should just, base our decision on who we're voting for on the candidate.
Right.
Um, that's the way it should be. Is that the way it is right now? I sure hope so. We know it's not. But that's the goal.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's talk a little bit then about what's sort of necessary for us for women to do the kinds of things that you're talking about. I mean, what we hear all along is networking, get a mentor, find someone who you can talk to who can help you do these kinds of things. Has that gotten any easier? And if so, what's the best way to go about it now? Again, I'll start with Mamie because again, you have this sort of overview. What do women today need to do to make sure that we've been talking about the traditional metaphor is the glass ceiling. It seems like the glass ceiling may be higher now, but it's still there, and women can get to a certain point. But beyond that, what does it take to get beyond that? Is I guess what I'm asking. Like lots of women in middle management, supervisory roles. Is there a way to get them into the C-suite, into boardrooms, and things like that? Should that be the goal, number one? And then how do you get there? How do you find mentors? How do you build a network? How do you make those kinds of productive relationships and maintain them?
Well, should that be the goal? It depends on the woman, of course. But definitely networking is important. Getting out there, getting yourself known, being in the right circles. The mentor part is also good and also important, to really connect with someone who is already there and can really guide you to get there if you want to, if that's where you want to go, and really be that support system for you. I know with our members, we have a mentoring program
Mm.
that we've developed. And primarily what we're focusing on and what my personal focus is as president is really letting the young women know that they can do whatever they want to do, whatever they set their minds to. They can achieve and accomplish anything. And to plug in to the different programs, the different events, the resources that we make available to them, plug into everything in order to help you to get there. And so we've really been encouraging the younger women a lot because I want them to step up into leadership roles and really take the organization where it needs to go.
Okay, and Lauren, I want to hear you on this too because I mean you're as you've said you're now in a leadership position and are in a position to be a mentor, I suppose. But I guess the question, I mean, yes, indeed, everyone should set their own goals. Someone may want to be CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Someone else might rather be in the field all day and doing the operations work and things like that. So I think the way Mamie put it is probably better than what I put it, that women can do whatever they want to do. The question is, how do you get there? And I think you've mentioned before that your firm has an interesting way of doing this, or at least is good at it anyway. I mean, for your position here should suggest that. So where do you see this going? What are the most important things for women to do at this point to get to that level that they want to get to, whatever that may be?
Yeah, so it was interesting listening to the conversation so far. I had several thoughts. I realized I was thinking about who were my mentors, and actually most of them were male, but they really, I think there's nothing wrong with it. They would speak up for me. They would help me out. I do remember when I was a young attorney, and like opposing counsel would call me their secretary. And like my mentor at the time, who was the partner I was dealing with on the case, like yelled at him, "How dare you, don't ever, she's an associate, blah, blah, blah." And to Elisa's point, I kind of wish I said that myself, and I'm hoping to maybe mentor someone to do it. But I was very lucky in that I did have a male kind of sticking up and saying it, and that was the end. Like it really kind of set the tone, and it was never expected. So I do strongly believe we need male advocates. I think we were saying that. I think we also need women to show how you can do it too. I mean, and it just get a new, women are determined. I just try to encourage it as much as they can. We have a women's initiative at the firm, which has an internal division as well as an external, where we try to market to other women to get clients and businesses, which I found very helpful. I think when I became a working mom, having a mentor show me you can still be successful as a working mom, that's when I kind of got more of a woman mentor, I would say, than necessarily a male. And I did find that extremely, just to see how they do it. The fact that you can manage it all. It's just kind of really inspires me personally.
Okay. And Alicia and Lorraine, I want to hear from you too. First, Alicia, I mean, you're a woman who runs this business. What do you want? What do you hope other women, younger women who look at you see? What do you hope they see? What do you hope they get from your example? And how do you communicate that if you try to?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, I bought this company from a male, and I had people quit right on the spot when I had that happen, because most of his staff was male. And so you have to kind of roll with that too, right? You can't let that pull you down. But I think one of the, I'm going to give you two little quick tips, if you don't mind, Jeff, to the audience about what I think would be good. And one of it is just get out there, like go to events. Doesn't matter that you don't know anyone, you don't know anything, you're afraid, you're nervous. Everybody there is afraid and nervous, right? But we all start talking, and then, it's like you chit chat and it all just comes together. But you meet like-minded people. You meet people who want to be successful and meet other people and help other people and back and forth. So even if you're, I'm an outgoing introvert, if you can believe it, right? So I'm very comfortable on stage, but then I walk off and then I read a book and don't bother me, right? But I have to force myself many times to go to events because my instinct would be not to, but my position demands it. So get out there, because you'll meet people unexpectedly, right? Things happen. And I'm just going to share this, and it's going to make people smile. This is something that I wish I had done when I was younger. I wish I had learned how to play golf. I think that if playing golf in today's world does help you in business. And if I had to do it over again, whether I liked it or not, I would learn how to play golf. That's my two tips.
Never too late to start, right, Mamie? I mean,
Absolutely. I'm going to learn how to play golf, even at
there you go.
I play miniature golf, but it's not the same thing.
Okay, well, you have a foursome right here. So if you all want to get together, by all means, that'll work. Lorraine, you've mentioned that your firm is women-owned, women-led. Again, the example that those folks set, how does that translate to younger people? Do they take away what we're talking about? They should take away here from seeing that example.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, right? Okay. I hope so. I think it really resonates when we're speaking with, as Lauren said, when you're interviewing candidates and there's multiple women around the table who are the decision makers, and they're like, this is the first time this has ever happened. Or, I'm in finance, we're in a wealth management firm. Only about 2% of CEOs in our industry are women. It is super rare. And certainly I never experienced it before I came to Palisade. So, for young women to see other women doing those things, I think it's really powerful. And then also, it's really just normalizing it, like it's possible. You can do it all, but can you do it all well at the same time? I don't think so. I mean, I remember, I have two teenagers now, and I'm now divorced, but at the time, married and kids, and it was tough, no remote work. And I worked over an hour away each way, and it was really challenging. But I said to myself, this was just for me, but I just never wanted to stop working. I felt like I always wanted to at least be in the workforce and just not give up my job because I felt like it was overwhelming because this too shall pass. And I am so, so glad that I did that because now, being divorced and having my own choice, having your own money gives you choices. So as it relates to the workforce and working and pushing yourself in your career as you're able to, if all that means is to stay in the loop and do the best you can at the time, push yourself just that little bit further because you just don't know. It allows you to then have more options when you might need them.
Okay. Right. Well, and you raised an interesting point about the finance, because I was going to ask about some of the issues with regard to some industries that are considered sort of high growth, finance being one, technology being another. And some of when I mentioned before, some of the powerful people who in the private sector who were saying some of these things, they were mostly in the tech world, the tech bros, as it were. Maybe are there some industries that are still sort of like, for lack of a better word, toxic in that way?
I think so. I think so. I think there's still some. There shouldn't be,
Mhm.
but yeah, for the most part, I really do. I think there's still some. It's
Okay, so
so
that's real.
interesting.
That sense is real. That there are
Oh,
industries that
it
are
is.
still remain hostile to women in.
Absolutely. It's so interesting because yesterday I'm driving and I'm listening to the news, 10 wins. And they had a little story about, or a little part where they were talking about women with reference to being paid equal pay, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And listen, I didn't know this. Maybe some of you knew. There's an equal pay day. An annual equal pay day. I never knew that. And so
Which
there
is what do you mean? It's
it's
just a
a day that's set aside, and it's my understanding that this year it's March 26th, which I guess is for Women's History Month,
mhm.
which, by the way, I don't need 1 month in the year to celebrate women. That's just me. But they were talking about the fact that the pay gap is still too wide,
Mhm.
that women still are not getting paid what they really should be getting paid.
Right.
And they were talking about that yesterday, even on the news. And I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, I think there's still some industries that are still a bit toxic with reference.
Okay. Right. The equal pay day. It strikes me that that's something similar to what used to be called Tax Freedom Day, which is here's how far you have to work before you paid all your taxes, or you don't have to pay taxes anymore. And the equal pay day is something similar, as far as I know. Alicia, you're nodding. You can maybe confirm this, that's where the sort of equilibrium happens, is whatever day that is. That women have to work that much longer to get there.
Yeah, it's from what I understand too, and I don't know a whole lot, maybe more than you do, but yes, and it has to do, to bring about awareness, right? Because when
Right.
I first heard it, I'm like, oh, so that day women are going to get a pay bump, like that was mine, right? We'll make it equal, right? But I think it also brings awareness that the gap is still there, so
Right.
that we don't fall, by the wayside thinking, oh, everything's la la, I'm perfectly happy, that it still exists. So that's my understanding of it as well.
Okay. All right. All right. And that brings us. I'm glad we talked about that, because I did want to talk about financial stuff next. And that is, first of all, let's talk about the pay gap, equity gap. And New Jersey has a pay transparency law which requires publishing salary ranges and benefits and things like that. It's been in effect, if I recall correctly, since June of last year. Lauren, I'm curious to hear from you a little bit about whether you think this is helpful, whether it has helped, whether it's working. I mean, have you heard anything? And I want to hear from everyone about whether what folks have heard about whether this is what this is doing, what the practical effects have been, and if there have been any.
I'll be honest, I have not heard much about
Okay.
how that's affected with the New Jersey. I will say for my own firm, one of the things they do differently is all the shareholders are basically on a formula. So
Okay.
you're paid based on production, origination, and minding. So it's an even pay. If you get the work and you're paid on it, that's yours. There's no subjective component to it. And I do think that really helps avoid some of the issues that I know are in other law firms about who gets paid what, and puts people on an equal footing.
Okay. Lorraine, you were nodding. I mean, is your firm also? I mean, when I used to cover the law, that was called "eat what you kill," and I was curious if that's similar in your line of work.
Well, at our firm, it's a little bit different only because we're a registered investment advisor. We're not a bank and broker, bank or broker. So there's no commission. So we're just paid a fee. It's a percentage fee of assets under management. And then there's no other fees. So it's very transparent from the client's perspective. In terms of our pay, it's nice to be able to say, I'm salaried, to a potential client. I'm not getting paid to recommend this product versus this product or sell you this versus that. It's a different angle of what you asked, Jeff, but it is another area of transparency. So I think wherever we have transparency, it's a good thing.
Okay, very good. All right, we're going to keep going with the money talk in just a second. I do want to take this moment to remind our viewers and to anyone who joined us late, we are going to leave time for questions. If you want to ask a question of our experts, just use the Q&A button in the Zoom control bar, enter your question there, and we'll get to as many as we can. We're getting near the top of the hour. In about 12 minutes, we'll start taking questions. But there are a couple more things I do want to cover, particularly with regard to finances. I'll stick with Lorraine for a minute because you work in this area. I'm curious as to some of the issues that you see most often that women need to pay more attention to in terms of managing their own money and having the kinds of conversations that we've been talking about perhaps dealing with the gap. Well, what do you hear? What bothers you, or what promise have you seen? What positive developments have you seen over the years?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of the issue is that only about 35% of financial advisors are women, and only about 23% of certified financial planners are women, which is really the gold standard when you have a financial advisor, because they're going to be fiduciaries all the time. They're going to do what's best for you all the time. It's very important. I think women, it's important to be part of the conversation about money before you have to be part of the conversation about money, right? You become a widow, you get divorced, you suddenly inherit wealth, whatever it may be, there's a premature, death, a separation, things that happen, a job loss even, where suddenly you now have to make financial decisions and you haven't even been like doing anything beyond, let's say, writing checks. And it's not a criticism. It's just saying, learn a little bit along the way, align yourself with professionals that are not only going to, manage your wealth and help you on a planning front, but also going to explain things and take the time so you at least know how you stand, where you stand, help to educate your kids, empower your kids so that, I know in New Jersey and now recently in New York, I live in New York, it's now required in the public schools to teach financial literacy. This is only recent. Kids come out of high school having absolutely no idea how to balance a checkbook, manage their wealth or their money, I should say. And they walk into like a college campus and they're, for this giant candy bar. I always remember when I went to college, it was like, you get the giant candy bar, but you have to sign up for this credit card. And they're like, free money. This is great. And then meanwhile, they're destroying their credit. They have no idea how to budget because no one's teaching them, because it really comes from the parents, So even if you have assets, you don't have to understand every little thing. I think it's just important to be part of the discussion and kind of just take that first step and say, I just want to understand, what are we saving versus what are we spending, and how do we get our kids more involved and make them responsible stewards?
Okay. Right. Mamie, if I recall correctly, you have a background in insurance. I'm curious as to, again, the same sort of question to you. What mistakes do you see women making? What should they do better? What do they need to be aware of in terms of finance, from an insurance perspective, if you want to, or just from a general business perspective?
Well, from a general business perspective, I think, and I agree with Lorraine, women really need to be part of the discussion with reference to money before they have to be. And just personal story, my father and my father-in-law are both deceased. So our mothers are widows now. My mother will be 90 this year, and my mother-in-law will be 89.
Mhm.
Two total different situations where my mom was always involved in the business and the finances. All she didn't miss a beat. After my dad passed, she just continued handling business as usual. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, never had to do anything. My father-in-law did everything. He paid the bills, he took care of everything. I mean, even as far as writing a check.
Mhm.
My sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-laws actually had to take over that part because my mother-in-law just didn't know.
Mhm.
And so I believe that it's important for women to really make sure that they're involved, pay attention to what's going on with reference to money matters, anything financial. That's very key and very important.
Okay. And Lorraine, Mamie brought up an interesting point, and that is that a lot of women, a lot of men too, are now in a position where they're taking care of their children and they're taking care of their parents.
Yeah.
And that's got to add a level of complexity that perhaps other generations haven't run into. Am I right about that, or is that sort of is this a problem that's long standing?
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely, a source of extreme stress for, for people that are going through it. I mean, I am myself, I just turned 50. I have an aging mom and I have teenage kids, and I get asked all the time by clients that are, around like in my peer group, I want to save for college, but I also need to save for my own retirement. Meanwhile, my time is totally stretched trying to take my mother to doctor appointments and like looking at colleges or whatever the case may be. So it's the sandwich generation and it's a bad sandwich. So it's
Not good. Oh no.
it's tough. It's tough. But look, you gotta reach out for help and support. And just on the college versus retirement, you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for your own
Right.
retirement.
Mhm.
So that's just the takeaway there. You can always help later with kids, but you don't want to leave them in a situation where they have to take care of you and fund your retirement. So if it has to be one or the other, and it often doesn't, by the way, it could be more over here, a little less over here, right? So, but yeah, sandwich generation issues are, I mean, we could have a whole webinar just on that, because you get in a room of let's face it, it's usually the daughters that
Right.
take care of their parents, when things go wrong. I personally I'm an only child, so it's got to be me. So it's a lot of pressure, and it's I think we just have to learn that it's okay to ask for help and get resources and get support when we're feeling like this is not something I know how to do at all.
Okay. All right. I want to move to a more macro financial issue, and that is access to capital. It's something that I've heard from women business owners that is exceedingly has been traditionally difficult because women don't have the same kind of old boy network that men do, and there had been skepticism. I mean, if 1974 you couldn't get a credit card if without a man signing for you, it's still even difficult to get venture financing or some kind of loan. And Alicia, I've got to believe that you've had some experience with this with people you work with. After all, a franchise has there's startup costs involved in that, and there's a certain level of financial commitment that a person has to make. What is the situation now with access to capital? What are you seeing in terms of the willingness of lenders and alternative lenders to actually take on women as clients?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff, because I will tell you, that's usually one of the very first questions people ask, right, when they're thinking about owning a business is how am I going to fund this? How am I going to be able to come up with the money? And I think the difference is that women are nervous to show what they don't know, right? Men, being honest, seeing it, I'm not saying it's, totally 100% this way, but women are almost embarrassed about what they don't want to know. And because they hesitate, they don't succeed in their dreams and their plans. Men will just come right out. How do I finance this? Or I don't have the money, or what? Like they just spit it out, and it's a question like, what's the weather today? It's not doesn't hold the same somehow value to them. So we encourage women, to be open about that. Now the difference is we represent about 800 brands, right, with all different kinds of financial requirements, and we have about, I don't know, 750 franchise consultants that help people to own a franchise. So we have funding partners. Lots of people don't know what is even available to them. They think it's got to be money in the bank. They don't know about having credit. They don't know about an SBA loan or a rollover for their 401. They don't know really what's available to them. And what we try to do is we have probably about 7 to 9 partners we work with, and that's one of the very first questions and relationships that we build is when someone's interested in owning a business or a franchise, let's get you involved with the finance partners and talk about what you can afford, what it looks like, what it will involve, just like when you're buying a house. And when we relate it like that, it's like the aha moment. You can see the light bulb. Okay, yes, I went through similar things, or I know about things through the house. We have to know what the budget is and what it's going to cost for me to pay and all that. But we see it quite a bit, is it's almost fearful for them to just open that little door. And we see it more so in franchising. I would say that it's accessible for women, for marginalized people of color, because there are programs in franchising that is designed to create entrepreneurs and also to scale. Right. Once they have their business, they want to open 2, 3, 4, 5. It becomes much easier a way for them to advance and to have generational wealth. So we're fortunate like that, where most communities don't have that availability to them.
All right. And maybe Lauren, I want to get you in on this too. Start with, go ahead, Lauren, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. There's definitely resources people don't know about. And I wanted to give a plug to the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And people are starting things because they definitely have grants and types of loans and things you can do. Right now, so I represent a lot of people in getting loans as well as helping with some alternative financing. So it's a tough market all around. And I can definitely see, unless you have some kind of guarantor with assets, it being hard to do. I don't know if it's a woman versus male problem, more of a getting there to start problem. I guess the network could have a lot of initial funding might be from family and friends. So if your friends aren't necessarily wealthy, I can see that being harder too, and to get alternative financing because it is who you know. So marketing is really important. So that's my general thought on that. I just wanted to give a shout out to look into those programs because I think really
I'm glad you brought that up because shameless plug here. The next issue of NJBIZ, which will be dated March 30th, has a section on early stage investing and finance. And one of the pieces talks about alternative funding measures. And I wanted to hear. I'll put this to Mamie and to Lorraine. And yes, I know we're at the top of the hour. We are going to get to questions in just a minute, but I do want to cover this question about resources and the kinds of things that are available. There are a couple of things. Lauren mentioned the Economic Development Authority, which has several programs that are useful to entrepreneurs and people just starting out. There are also other things, asset-backed loans, for example, which are a way that you don't need the collateral is what you own rather than what your revenue is going to be and what you're bringing in. And then there's crowdfunding. And there are sites that actually specialize in these kinds of things. It's not just a GoFundMe. They're registered with the SEC, and they are open to accredited investors, and it's a real thing, and it's protected. So Mamie, I'm curious as to, I just named a couple. What other resources are out there? What should women be looking for in with regard to getting capital to start their own business or to finance a business that they want to expand?
Well, I excuse me, I think it's been pretty much covered by you and Lauren. I was going to mention the NJEDA as well. Mm-hmm. That's one of the organizations that we collaborate with, and we often refer members to as well. And there's so many other different organizations that can help position people to be in the right position to receive funding for their businesses. But one of the things I want to mention too is, in order to access those resources or get connected to those resources, it's really important to get out there and network. Go to the events. And then there are always, with the modern technology, there are so many webinars and seminars with reference to funding opportunities and where business owners can get funding. I mean, it's just so many. All they need to do is just plug into those seminars, those webinars, and they're usually virtual. They do have some in person as well, but there are so many virtual until there's just no excuse as far as where do I get the information from? Because that information is always out there. Small Business Development Center is another organization that can connect people to viable resources for funding, as well as the WCEC Women's Center for Entrepreneurship.
Okay, and I should also mention the New Jersey Business Action Center, which is also has a lot of information available for folks like that. Lorraine, have we missed anything?
Nothing to add on that, but I would say kind of on a more basic level, know your credit score. Many of us get the little freebie credit score that pops up with our bank login, but actually read your whole credit report from each of the 3 reporting agencies. Because if let's say you're married and you only have credit cards as an authorized user on your spouse's account, and something happens to him or her, you do not have a credit card anymore. So you need to make sure that you have cards in your own name and that your credit score is continually being monitored and improved upon, because you just don't know when you're going to need a loan, whether it's for a business or for any purpose, a car, a home, whatever it is. It's a strength, and it takes time to develop. So you need to have that awareness.
Okay, very good. All right. We are a little past the top of the hour, so I did want to get to some of the questions because we do have a few of them. And I wanted to start, I was going to talk about technology, but since we've got some questions about it, I figured I'd save it for here. And as those of us at NJBIZ know, anytime we talk about technology, the first thing that comes up is artificial intelligence. Do you think AI is required to use in business? What impact do you see AI having on the job market this year? How can leaders leverage AI digital tools to drive growth while ensuring the teams avoid burnout? So, the question we always ask is, how important is AI? How important is it to know about it? And how is it changing the way things are the way business is done these days? Lorraine, you're nodding, so I'll start with you.
Yeah, we're very much looking into it and trying to find ways to really leverage the work done in our business. Really, when it comes to administrative tasks and kind of like the number crunching aspect of things, the relationship building has to be a human, right? The relationship building, the trust building, connecting with people, that has to be, someone like me. For the actual, the time spent analyzing, running scenarios and financial plans or portfolios or whatever the business is you're in, that's the area where AI is really helpful, and we're really starting to pursue some things there to, just really to leverage our time. I think if you're not looking into AI, you're already too late.
Okay. Okay, Lauren, you're nodding. First of all, I mean, there've been a lot of really weird stories about lawyers and AI these days. I'm sure you're aware of them. But where do you see this? I mean, how important is it for women to know how to use AI? And does it? I mean, and I'm wondering because we haven't talked about burnout, but that's a real issue too, given all the pressures that women are under. And can AI help in that? And so where do you see? How do you see AI helping or hindering in this regard?
So I'm personally a fan of AI.
Okay.
I'm working with a very active practice, and I have two young kids. As a general matter, I don't know how I would do my job without the technology of today. And anything that there's there to help me do it better, we're all for it. With legal and the law, you have to be very careful of what you're putting your client's information into, because obviously privacy concerns. So we have special subscription program, and some of the stuff it does is truly amazing. I mean, we could be talking forever about what AI is going to do to the legal industry. But to your point, Jeff, if you don't know what you're doing and you get this really helpful information from AI, it's very easy to make a mistake, because you need to be able to look at it and say, that doesn't seem correct. You always have to really verify it. And when you're getting an interesting, clients are now also using ChatGPT before they come to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting conversation where you're like, yes, I know ChatGPT says that, but please trust me, that is not actually correct. But thankfully, I'm not a litigator, so I've not given a phantom case and done all that.
Right. Okay. Maybe anything you want to add, or Alicia, anything on AI? Because I should tell you all that we do these things every month, and AI continues to be sort of an obsession on some people. We always get, no matter what the topic is, we get questions about AI.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. AI, as far as I'm concerned, everyone needs to learn about it, learn how to use it, make sure you're using it correctly. Just a little side, after I left my corporate career, I started my own business. So I'm a professional mediator. And one thing about it, you can use AI in any area, any industry. It's phenomenal, but you need to make sure that when you're using it, you go over the information that AI gives you. I think Lauren alluded to that, to make sure that it's accurate, and also make sure that it's you. Okay, it's what you would say or what you would share as far as information. We do trainings, the Women's Chamber, we do trainings on AI because we have members, some of them are certified in AI. And so we do have different trainings and different things like that, just to help the business owners learn how to use it.
Okay, very good. Yes.
Lisa? Yeah, so in franchising, right, we jumped in, as a whole, franchise community jumped in very early, right? Because we don't ever follow the norm, right? So I've been involved with AI for a long time. Most people, when they're thinking of AI, they're thinking of ChatGPT and, making fun, put myself into the 1920s or costumes and fun things. But I always look at it on how does it monetize, right? It's typical CEO, right? So, what's happening now in businesses that really do transform day-to-day operations or take the mundane things that would take hours for reporting. And it's like night and day. It's like before you had electricity to after you had electricity. The difference is everybody talks about AI, everybody's an expert, everybody, and most people are a chapter ahead of you. So don't think that there are zillions of experts out there and you're in the audience saying, I don't know anything. We're all learning it as we go along, and it changes so quickly. But I will tell you that when you open your mind to it and take it in, the differences that it makes is tremendous. And for women, especially, who are juggling so many different lives under their umbrella, it's a huge, time saver. The thing that you have to do is not be fearful of it, right? Because what we don't know, we're afraid. We think it's going to take our jobs. You hear all the doomsday stuff. And I will tell you, it will take away so much of the stuff that's boring to you or that you don't want to do and let you focus more on the things that you want to do. And for business leaders, you can't get wet from the word water, right? You got to jump in the pool and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to spend a little money that you shouldn't. I mean, that's how you learn. But it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of those who adapt. And this is the way of the world, man. It's not going backwards. So, learn to embrace it, learn to have fun. Don't expect it to be perfect. Don't expect you to be perfect in it.
Okay, very good. All right. Yeah, we have a sort of a kind of a meta question, I think. We want to say that women support women. Do you see that happening in more competitive business environments, or do you see women just trying to survive and not being able to support one another's progress? What advice do you have for women who truly want to, but who struggle to support other women? And that I think does raise an interesting point in that if what we're saying, we're saying it's gotten more difficult for women in general. Is there space, is there headspace for women to do the kinds of things that we've been talking about, mentoring, coaching, sponsoring, and helping women out? I mean, Mamie, you look skeptical, so I'll start with you.
Well, the look is really we have both. We've got women who are trying to support, other women, and then we also have women that, man, they're just trying to survive and
Right.
do what they do. They just don't have the time to even think about, am I supporting, anyone else? And it's not intentional. It's not that they don't mean to support, but they have to do what they have to do. And so it's important. Yes, it's great for us to support, each other, support other women. But also we've got to focus on, what we need to focus on. I think that's really important too.
Okay. Lauren, I mean, the law is one of those industries, one of those professions that does have a lot of time pressure and a lot of pressure in general. Is again, what do you have any advice for women who are in that kind of position but really do want to try to help younger women or just women who need some extra encouragement?
Yeah, it's tough. And I do think has been a generation shift, which hopefully is for the benefit. That's a lot of some of the people I know, like my older than me, have told me stories where women would really be hard on other women. And that was more just because that's how they were treated. And they thought that's
Right.
too cheap to get through.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we're moving away from that, which is definitely very beneficial.
Okay.
But yeah, it's tough to find time to really take someone under your wing, but I think it kind of happens naturally. The other thing I would really hope shifts is like most of my clients, I feel like a lot of clients go for male attorneys and like things like that, like even women. So why are women nice? Sorry. Where's it going?
Thank goodness that's you. I thought it was me. I'm like,
I'm like, can you hear
Anne-Marie's
that?
gonna kill me.
Like why is that the default? I just would like women to really think about that. Like who could really help serve you better? Is it necessarily? I'll say my mother-in-law has now told me she will never hire a male again after hearing me on the other side with men. It's just, but it seems like it's the default. So I think that's one way women can help women is to use more women as the people you use, not because they're just
Right.
as good, honestly.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, then along similar lines, what is your advice for building connection and influence with male C-suite members? I mean, it's a fact of life. You got to get along with those guys. I don't know. Lorraine, how do you do that? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something you probably have a lot to do with, but I mean,
Well,
there must be
not
some
in my
lessons that you
current
have.
role, but in the past,
Right.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Sign up for the project, stay late, do what you have to do. Get the extra education, take the class, do the designation, be the one that goes and does the thing that no one else wants to do. Because then, you're earning your stripes and you're going to be seen for what you are worth versus just a label. So you can't always be in a situation where you can stay late or do these things, but where it comes up and you can add real value, don't hesitate. Be at the table, right? We talk about getting the seat at the table. Just take the freaking seat at the table. And then don't just, nod and not say anything, but also don't say things just to talk. Make sure that if you say something, it's additive.
Right. Okay. And Alicia, is this the place where learning how to play golf might have helped?
Perhaps it would, but if you're not playing golf, you got to figure out other things. But I still recommend that. But just going back to the question before for a minute, and I'll relay it into the current one. But we were asking about how do you find the time, right, to mentor and all of that, right? Well, one of the easiest ways is just to be and to inspire others. It doesn't mean you have to take the person right, 20 people under your wing. But women can tell their story. Everybody on this panel is a success. So telling your story, women hearing that, it's inspirational. It gives them, it's a way of mentoring from distance rather than keeping quiet. So, that's why I'm a big advocate on LinkedIn or doing an article or sharing at a networking or telling your story of your struggles and what, real stories are what influences people's lives, right? So we've all had, nobody has that straight line of success, right? It's all the squiggles and all that. People need to hear that. And in terms of how you get along with men, I tend to joke around all the time because it's an obvious difference. And like, why not just, make it, what it is, right? So once in a while, I'm on a call like this, and maybe there's 40 people, and anybody have any last words and whatever, and I'll just say maybe your hair looks great, right? And everybody laughs. You know what I mean? And it just makes it like we're all human, and we're all got the best. We've got the end result in mind, and everybody shows up and be themselves. Don't try to be men, and men don't want to try to be women unless that's your thing. Then you can do that too. But I don't worry about it so much. I show up, I'm authentic. Men show up, they're authentic. We're going to clash. We're going to get along. Hey, this is life.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. A couple more financial questions. I should tell everyone that we are going to leave time for the four of you to offer some closing comments. But we do have time, I think, for at least a couple more questions. And this one, how do you provide financial literacy to your employees? I think, Lorraine, you mentioned that earlier. Is it up to employers to provide financial literacy, or should that come from the schools? I mean, you mentioned that folks coming out of high school who can't balance a checkbook. Where does the responsibility for A, teaching financial literacy lie, and then B, if you know what you don't know, where do you go to find it?
Well, that's part of the problem. No one knows where to go.
Okay.
And once you start looking, who can you trust, right? So, you get somebody who's like a slick salesperson and they seem great and they seem like they're an advocate for you. And then suddenly they're selling you all this stuff. And now what are you going to do? So it's tough, but I think, like anything, you just, I think it does help by having it in the schools, because if it's in the schools and we're doing basic financial literacy, then we're blanketing that knowledge across kids that are coming from diverse backgrounds and experiences, because generally you learn about money from your parents. And if your parents are not financially literate or irresponsible with money, or have had a really tough struggle, or whatever the situation is, and they're really just not the best teachers of that, who do you have, other than the schools at that stage, right? Unless you generate your own interest and you really seek it out. I think it has to start in the schools, and and then that's planting the seed. Like, okay, someone told me don't take on, don't run up high credit card bills. I've seen it with my parents, or I see this happen. Sorry about my crazy dog. I've seen it happen with with family members or friends. And, I don't want that to be me. So, at what point does it take a turn for the better with the next gen?
Okay. All right. Does anybody else want to weigh on that? If not, I'll go to another question. It's up to you.
I definitely think it should be in the schools to start with, so it becomes the norm, right? We're all taught never to talk about money. It's like the worst thing in the world to teach someone, don't talk about money, don't talk about money. No, so nobody talks about money. But I definitely think it's in the schools. And I think that we should, as parents, as communities, as society, should also empower people that it's their responsibility. Now, how they find that, that's also by networking, asking people, talking to, their other professions, an attorney, a lawyer, recommendations. But one of the big problems, I think, is that we still have that, money is this dark, deep secret over here, and it stays under the bed. That serves no one. So the
Okay.
schools, I think, for sure. Great point, Ryan. Great point.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to continue to talk about money because we have another question. New Jersey is one of the most expensive states to live in, yet wages have not increased at the same rate of inflation, housing costs, higher education, etc. What is the responsibility of New Jersey business owners to increase salaries to keep up with the cost of living? And how can we advocate for ourselves in our career to earn more? Is the answer to job hop to achieve higher pay, or can we grow at one company and be compensated fairly? I guess the question is then, how do you have that conversation? If you live in New Jersey and the prices are getting out of reach, what do you do? Is it really just as the questioner says, find another job, or are there ways, are there strategies that you can use to try to increase your compensation where you are? Uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. This doesn't look good.
I was going to say, I'll try. So one of the things I personally have fought with as a woman, and I think it's really good advice, is ask the question. Men are going to be asking for the salary raise. There's no reason a woman can't. The worst they can do is say no. And then you can point out that if they don't realize this, how much it costs to get someone new and to train. You need the money. So every time I've asked when it's been like a salary, you can usually get something if you're a good employee. So just ask the question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick for
Sure,
2 seconds. I used to be my old stomping ground was as a life and career coach, and I had a huge firm that did that. So we would teach people how to do salary negotiations and how to advance in their career. With no disrespect, Lauren, and that might have been great what you did. To say that you need money, the employer, that's right over their head. That means absolutely nothing to them. You need to document what you've been doing. You want to pull out your accomplishments or show what you've done over the last year, 2 year, and document it so that when you go into that meeting, you can say, hey, remember when I changed this system and how much money did that save you? And remember when I, did the training, and you want to document and substantiate. Because to just say that you need, that doesn't mean anything to an employer. So I didn't mean to disrespect you on that one.
No, you're absolutely 100%. I'm sorry, I didn't explain it correctly. I wasn't saying, oh, I need more money. I was saying, hey, come in, exactly like you said, I'm a good employee. I think it's time I get a raise to ask.
Yeah, and explain why.
Yeah.
That's it. I'll be quiet now.
No, that's okay. No need to be quiet.
Okay. Let me just weigh in real quick. Also, job hopping is not the answer, although that's typically what most people are prone to do in order to get get more money. Especially if they've had the conversation and they've walked in and said, listen, I need a raise, or I want a raise, and this is why. And sometimes, like Elisa said, sometimes even that will go over the employer's heads. And they'll, boot you out. Listen, I used to hire and fire and do performance appraisals and all that stuff in my role in corporate. So, but definitely, as far as that's a question that probably needs to be directed at the powers that be, the ones who are really making those decisions with reference to what's paid in the state of New Jersey. And so that's another conversation that needs to be advocated.
Right. Okay. All right. We are nearing the end, and as I say, I do want to give you all a chance to wrap up. I just want to ask this one more question because it goes to we've been talking. You've all been talking about being advocates for yourself and speaking up and asking the questions. This is how do you deal directly with a client without a senior person taking over and taking the lead? This is a sort of a real world example of what do you do? What is there a strategy? Is there certain language that you should use in those kinds of situations?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, it's, sometimes you're just thrown in the pool.
Okay.
And, prepare as best you can. And, I just mentioned this to a more junior colleague recently. Don't be afraid to say you don't know the answer. I do it all the time. It took me so long to get to the point where I was comfortable saying, you know what, that is a really good question, and I have no idea. Let me look that up for you. And then people are fine with that. They'd much rather you do that than you try to, answer them and it's clearly you have no idea what you're saying. You earn a lot more respect the other way. So yeah, sometimes that's the only way you learn is by going through something. And then you can always ask for feedback. You can say, this is the first time I'm doing this. I understand these are the priorities of the meeting. We're going to go through these things. This is something I don't know as much about. I'll do the best I can. And then if you need more resources, I'll follow up.
Okay.
You want to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Right.
I would also encourage that you have a conversation privately with your manager, like not during the set, not when you're with your client, but lots of CEOs or managers or leaders won't delegate because they think they can do it better. So they fish instead of teaching their people to fish, which creates friction, right? And unhappiness for everybody. I always say I own the company and my team runs it, right? Because I empower them. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask them why they're hesitant to give you more responsibility or to let you take the lead. Because I teach that to CEOs, saying that you are showing that you don't trust your team when you hold on so tightly. And that sets up negative environment in work.
Okay, very good. All right, we are just about out of time, but as I said, I did want to give everyone a chance to offer some final thoughts. This time we'll go in reverse alphabetical order and start with Alicia.
Let me unmute myself there.
There you
I
go.
could set that, right? So I'll be really brief. I mean, you hear it. I'm very passionate. I'm very enthusiastic. And I would just say, anybody in the audience, man, just go for it. You're going to make mistakes, but open the door, take a little baby step, explore it. If it's not right, you can go a different way. But I'm telling you, all of us here, we don't have enough time, but we could share all our horror stories and negative things and whatever. So do not worry about that. What you have to worry about is in next year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, are you going to be in the same spot? That's going to stink. So put your cape on, right? Channel a superhero. Go for it, girl.
Okay, very good. Mamie?
Well, I also want to say, step out scared. A lot of times people think they've got to have it all together before they get out there, but step forth and do it scared. And trust me, you will learn and you will be glad that you did. Connect with the right people, get in the right circles, network, get out there, let people know what you do, what you're about. And you never know, because in networking, what I found out is that sometimes it's not even the person in the room, but it's who they know that you can benefit from and that can benefit from you. And so definitely be an advocate for whatever it is that you don't think is fair. Be an advocate, speak up. And the way that you can become an advocate is to connect with like-minded organizations, something that really aligns with what you're about, and make your voice heard.
Very good. Lauren, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, the lawyer in me, it was just killing me. As one of the panelists was saying earlier about knowing financial stuff, don't just sign things. Make sure to read them. It's just because your husband gives it to you to sign. I have heard many horror stories, so please read everything. If you don't understand, ask the right person for questions. But other than that, I just wanted to thank you for having me on this panelist, and to the other panelists, it was my pleasure to meet all of you and to speak with you. I found this really interesting, and thank you to everyone for listening.
Very good. Thank you. Lorraine, that means you checking us out.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks to everybody on the panel with me. Really interesting conversation. Isn't it amazing? You put together a smattering of professional women who have maybe never met each other. I've never met any of you, I don't think, before. And there are so many interesting common threads, right? So, regardless of where you are in your career and what stage you're in, who to the audience, for those listening here, I think that one of the themes I get here is just take a moment, figure out what that next step is going to be to get you to where you want to be. First, you have to figure out where you want to be, and then what is the first step to get there? Whether it's, related to your career, or it's related to financial independence, or it's, unrelated to either of those things, just to make you a better you and a stronger person. I agree with Alicia, none of us had a straight path. And it's a winding road, of life, and we're always learning along the way, and we're all still learning. But there are a lot of people out there willing to help you and talk to you. And, just because the convenient one is next door in the office next door, and you really want them to be the one, they may not be the right one. So don't give up. Keep trying. And, I agree. Broaden the network, Mamie, and make sure you meet as many people as possible, because you will find a lot of like-minded people along the way. And be part of the discussion about money, because it does give you choices, and it will help you reach your goals, whatever they may be.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists. As always, you can read coverage of today's event later on njbiz.com, and expanded coverage in an upcoming print edition. This one will be dated April 6th. And remember to look for the recording link. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.